Match day in England, a once localised footballing ritual that now demands worldwide attention.
In Liverpool, superficially, everything looks the same as it did when I first came here as a fan back in the 1980s. But scratch the surface and much has changed. Takeover battles, debt bailouts and foreign ownership. That is Liverpool's more recent history, and it's the sort of story being witnessed by fans throughout the footballing world.
Globally, football has never been richer, but the debts, well, they've never been bigger.
Most of the teams in Spain, they are bankrupt. It's very difficult for them to pay the players.
Many fans, particularly those in England, feel they're the ones paying the biggest price.
The higher wages we pay, the fans will always presume that it's coming out of their pocket.
And should those fans one day disappear, will anything of value be left behind? Right now, the English Premier League is seemingly an all-powerful force, a stage for many of the game's best players. It brings in billions of dollars of revenue and has a devoted global audience.
If you're going to put a football match on, you better attract the best possible talent, play it in good stadium, play it in full stadium with the fans. The intensity, the pace, the honesty, the integrity of the way our games are played, I think that's the most important part.
Football gets you the world, but the Premier League gets you the world with knobs on. And that's why there are 5 American owners. 25% of the Premier League is owned by Americans now, and another 25% of it is owned by other foreigners.
The side I grew up supporting was Liverpool, a team born over a drink in the back room of this pub. It matured into a club that achieved international fame. Their Anfield Stadium, now the centre of a business worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Hello everybody, Mario Machado welcoming you to Anfield, where the cop is and where of course the red-shirted Liverpool Reds take on Tottenham Hotspur in a regular league match.
Liverpool's is just one English football story to have captivated the world.
Kennedy! It is another goal!
With 5 European Cups to their name, they are the country's most successful team. Along the way, Liverpool's impassioned fans have become every bit as famous as the players. But is the monetisation of football now pushing supporters away from the clubs they love? As teams that were once centres of the local community become centres of global business.
Paying £50 to go and watch Liverpool play football today, it's a lot of money. Football supporters are treated as a commodity. It's expected that if I don't turn up, someone else will take my place, or that if I don't want to spend £50 on a football shirt, somebody else will. And that's not a nice attitude to have. The powers that be, the FA, the Premier League and the football clubs themselves need to recognise the importance of supporters and need to realise that without us they wouldn't exist. Without us they wouldn't be able to attract these multi-million-pound sponsorship deals.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Valerie Park, the home of AFC Liverpool.
All reasons why every Saturday sees more than one Liverpool team kicking off. This is the rather more humble home of AFC Liverpool, a club set up by 1,000 supporters who could no longer afford to watch the Premier League. Just one of a number of similar sides formed across England by football fans who feel exiled in their own country.
Tickets for a Premier League game now costs £40–50. It's not very family friendly anymore, and that's through no fault of like any particular football club. That's just the way football's gone now. When I was growing up, you wake up on a Saturday morning, you could go to the match. Now, for a lot of children and for families and for old people as well, Saturday football involves watching Sky Sports, watching the goals going on the telly. We're not a protest against Liverpool. Everyone's still Liverpoolian. We all still watch Liverpool games when we can. It's just solely because we, for whatever reason, cannot get into Anfield anymore.
The crowd may be small, but that it's here at all is telling. And these sentiments hit a countrywide nerve. At all levels, many fans now feel disenfranchised by a game they used to feel was theirs.
Yeah.
Former Liverpool player John Aldrich knows just how important that sense of belonging to a club is. In the 1980s, the team was giving his city much more than just trophies.
Unemployment was rife. We had nothing. All you had is to get to Anfield or get to Goodison and watch our teams, and that'll lift you through the bad times. And you're right, whenever Liverpool would win a cup, which thankfully they were then, people walking around with a smile on their face, but some of them it was in a mess. The city was in a mess. You know, remember the riots down in Parliament Street? That was just what everyone was going through. The only thing we had was football.
Historically, football offered the working man some much-needed and very affordable escapism. Games kicked off on a Saturday afternoon to coincide with the end of the working week. In Liverpool, it was on Anfield's famous Kop stand where thousands gathered.
Well, the Kop's exclusive. The Spine Cup at Liverpool is an institution. And if you're a member of the Kop, you feel as if you're a member of a big society, where you've got thousands of friends all around about you.
In them days, it was just basically a working class sport, especially Liverpool Football Club. If you look at the old pictures of the Kop, you can see 20,000 basically working men behind the goal. But you can see the spirit of the old black and white films, you know, of Anfield. It just seemed to be, everything seems to be just gelling to one big organisation or one community.
I think in a lot of working class areas, everything is football. If it's not football, closely followed by music, it'd be second, because of course it's a hotbed for musicians as well. Everything is work, work, work for the weekend, and they're either going out and listening to bands or they're going out and watching the football, and then they're talking about it for the rest of the weekend. So it's incredibly important.
Growing up just down the road, Liverpool was my family's team. And as at any club, match day sees you welcomed into an extended family where there's no room for passive observers. Supporters really can and do inspire their side.
It is soccer from England at its very best. Graham Souness.
The Kop was famous throughout the world for, you know, getting penalties when maybe we didn't really deserve them, or, as I would say, sucking the ball in towards the net at that end. They always created a marvellous atmosphere.
Dalglish, and it is a goal! Dalglish scores!
I think the fans have a huge part to play in this football club, and they always have done. Support our player, whether you're working here. It no matter, you support Liverpool Football Club and everybody can help each other.
That philosophy is borne out every April the 15th. The date Liverpool remembers, the 1989 Hillsborough Stadium disaster. 96 supporters lost their lives following a deadly crush.
A lot of water has passed under the bridge since then. I've watched most of it ebb and flow. Because just like a tide under the power of the moon, it just won't let me go. I've dealt with many things in my life, and time seems to melt most things away. But Hillsborough has its feet firmly under the table and would like to stay another day.
When you walk through the storm, hold your head up high
It was a day that changed English football forever and indirectly pushed the game towards an era when harmony between club and fans wouldn't always be so easy to achieve.
As a consequence of the official report into Hillsborough, all major stadiums in England were to become all-seater. The seats arrived here at the world-famous Kop in 1993. The year before, the top clubs in England had broken away from the rest of the country in more than 100 years of tradition to form the Premier League. Football in England would never quite be the same again.
TV and sponsorship money flowed in, and many of the world's best players followed. English football was forward-thinking and fashionable. The Premier League, a global brand leader.
We have history on our side. We've been doing this for 130 years in terms of professional football here. We've attracted some fantastic talent. These clubs are extremely sophisticated sporting organisations that have, captured the imagination, if you like, of the world.
But the fans have become less sure where they stand or indeed sit. Ticket prices no longer reflect their needs, but the need for teams to make money. Kick-off times reflect not their working week, but a TV schedule. And their clubs are now being bought and sold just like any other commercial product.
Some of this ownership stuff looks odd when you think that these are football clubs. They're not, yogurt factories or supermarkets. It's so unregulated, the access. You come in, you got some money, you want a football club, help yourself, lad.
Liverpool fans protesting in the midst of a bitter ownership battle, just one of the close to unthinkable consequences of the Premier League years. The Liverpool family turning on itself.
You're a miracle worker.
It all began in 2007. The American duo of Tom Hicks and George Gillette replaced generations of local ownership, promising huge investment.
That was one of the hardest sales I've ever had to make in my business career, because it wasn't a question of money. It was a question of, are we the proper custodians? And I believe we are.
This is a special privilege that to be afforded the opportunity of owning perhaps the greatest franchise in the history of the greatest sport in the world.
The accents and the use of the word franchise would have been forgiven had the pair not seemingly been intent on selling the family silver. In the process of buying the club, they also loaded more than $500 million worth of debt onto it. It's not that Liverpool fans were against foreign ownership, just owners whose supporters believed were trying to exploit their club for a quick profit. Singer Peter Hooton soundtracked some of my formative years, but he was now putting his voice to another use as a frontman for Liverpool's supporters.
There was a feeling of hopelessness, really, that you weren't going to football matches anymore to support the club. You were going into a political arena. Tom Hicks always used to say, I bought Weetabix and I'm very proud of that. Every time someone has a Weetabix at their breakfast table, they're paying for my debt because he bought it on a loan agreement. Same way that eventually Liverpool became saddled by debts.
They just care about money. They don't care about fans.
But it wasn't just Liverpool fans taking on their owners and fearing for their team's financial future. This was and still is happening at clubs at all levels, all over the country. Just outside Liverpool is my hometown of Chester. Hardly a footballing hotbed, but even here, the game's newfound focus on money has taken its toll.
The city's football team had well over 100 years of history, if not great success, actually had its origins in my old school team. But in 2010, after years of mismanagement, the fans were in mutiny, and one last unpaid tax bill was the end. The club went out of existence. The city of Chester no longer had a football team.
It wasn't the end though, thanks to men like Chris Pillsbury. From the ashes rose a new Chester. For it to happen, Chris had to move from the terraces to the director's box. This new club was to be run and owned by the supporters.
In any club, the most important people are the fans. Football clubs can change the name, they can change the manager, they can change the ground, they can change owners, they change players. The fans are the only constant.
Chester supporters suffered a classic case of football mismanagement. Premier League principles applied, only the scale differed.
Come on, matey. Cheers.
Here it was local businessmen doing the buying and selling. Bankruptcy, the far from untypical consequence.
You've got a situation where some businessman, in inverted commas, comes in and pours money into it, and then suddenly, for some reason or other, he gets fed up, or he goes bankrupt. He wants the money back. The club's in debt. The club goes into liquidation or whatever, administration. And this cycle is continuous in football.
Thankfully for Chester fans, while their passion is Premier League sized, the levels of finance aren't. They were able to raise enough money to start again with a new team in the 8th tier of English football. There are no billion-dollar TV deals here, no millionaire players, no Russian oligarchs throwing their cash around. To be with Chester fans now is to be in a more innocent time, when local support really could be a club's focal point, not just part of its sales brochure.
Oh, it's run by the fans, for the fans, owned by the fans. It's just a fans club, full stop.
Everyone wants to come and everyone's enjoying themselves, and if you're top of any league,
that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the last sort of 5-10 years, it's been a disaster.
Rejuvenated, totally rejuvenated. Seeing kids down there now that weren't there before, young kids are wearing the Chester shirt now instead of running around in the Liverpool shirt and the United shirt, the Everton shirt.
You are Chester, and it's your football club, isn't it? We don't feel for United or Liverpool or...
You're a person as well when you come here as well, aren't you?
Yeah.
If you went to somewhere like Liverpool, you're not, you know, you're a face in a crowd.
I was watching Chester a lot in the mid-1980s. One year, the team actually got promoted out of the old English 4th Division. In a way, it was something of a shock because Chester has never been about silverware. It's all about the fans being every bit as committed as the players, about feeling rooted with something from your hometown. A year ago, these fans had nothing. Now, through their own determination and hard work, they've got back just the sort of club they deserve.
Chester fans are enjoying a new club of their own making, but due to the amounts of cash involved, Premier League supporters just don't have that option. In Liverpool, as in Chester, the fans rose up to defend, as they saw it, the best interests of the club they loved in the face of hostile owners. But unlike in Chester, a supporter takeover just wasn't viable.
How did the people feel here, sort of the fact that their club was being thrown around by these Americans?
I actually think, you know, a large percentage didn't realise to the depth of what we were in. We did, obviously, because we had figures there in front of us and we could see it all. So it was very scary. It was really scary, I have to say, you know, and you're wondering where's it going to end.
With their creditors circling, Hicks and Gillette did eventually sell, but the club has stayed in American hands. The owners of the Boston Red Sox baseball team now have a soccer side on their annual balance sheet.
We're here to win. We have a tradition of winning. We are the second highest spending club in Major League Baseball, and we're here to win.
We'll always be here. Our sons and daughters will always be here. You know, we've gone for generations. The American ownership, you know, How long is it going to last? Nobody knows. Nobody's got a crystal ball. But they're businessmen and they're in this not for the good of Liverpool Football Club. It's because it helps their portfolio.
New York and more rain greeted another Anglo-American sporting event, and a much brighter one for us. It's the match between the Metropolitan All-Stars and our old friends Liverpool Football Club.
This is Liverpool on a trip to New York in 1948. Global marketing wasn't on the agenda then. This visit was about the players escaping post-World War II food rationing in England.
Half-time, and as far as Liverpool were concerned, there was a lot more scoring to do.
Now, though, the English game is where many go to try and fatten their wallets.
So to a victorious team we say, good for you, Liverpool.
America's Premier League portfolio is bulging. Liverpool, along with Manchester United, Aston Villa, Sunderland and most recently Arsenal, have all become American-owned English Premier League teams.
It's the only global game. See, it doesn't matter how many American franchises you own, does it? You can have a baseball team and a gridiron team and a basketball. It don't get you the world.
With not one but two cathedrals, religion is the other constant in Liverpool life. Finding a reverend preaching in a football shirt here isn't actually that surprising, even one who was born in America.
In some ways, sport, and football in particular in this country, is almost the last bastion of worship. I think I would love to see what happens at a football match happen in my church on a Sunday morning. This sort of spontaneous praise as you know, Andy Carroll scores his first Liverpool goal, and you can't help but find yourself on your feet.
Right now, worldwide faith in the Premier League is strong, but the local family is in danger of breaking up. A generation disconnected and priced out of clubs that should be their second homes. Will football's global audience still be interested if one day their TV pictures reveal a depleted congregation and not a devoted mass of believers?
Liverpool are known for being community-based and involving supporters. Well, it's about time that they recognise all supporters, not just the ones with the most money or the people who are willing to pay the most, but all those people who want to offer the support for the football club.
Like any top club, Liverpool are now a brand. Foreign markets have to be exploited to generate the millions needed to stay competitive. Supporters understand this, but they also know they're part of the product that is sold to the world. How they continue to relate to their city's club, their family's club, their club. Well, that's a question all fans at all clubs are now having to contend with. This is Liverpool's other sporting passion. A world away from football's Premier League playground, every penny earned in the boxing ring comes the hard way. English football has made an elite very rich. For fans still grounded in their working environment, relating to this new breed of superstar isn't easy.
What frustrates me more than anything is, like, that's the club we love. You know, we want to see them wearing a heart on the sleeve, whether they be getting paid a £5 a week or whether they be getting paid 50 grand a week. We want to see them working hard and trying to do what's best for the club. A lot of these footballers sit back and just basically, they're happy to sit on the bench to get the 50 grand a week or whatever it is. We don't want to see that at Liverpool. We want to see every player that's wearing a red shirt try it 110% and give everything they've got.
Everyone realises it's about money. You know, the Premiership is now Hollywood, isn't it? There's no doubt about that. The players are superstars, they're treated as cult celebrities, even the wives are superstars.
I don't know one supporter who complains about a player's wages if the team's winning. Considering the pleasure they bring, they're like film stars or pop stars. If you go to a concert or you go to a film, you don't come away wanting to know what the actors got paid or what etc., you've either enjoyed it or you don't enjoy it, and if you don't enjoy it, you don't go again.
The quest to reach this cash-soaked promised land absorbs the country. Plymouth is something of a footballing outpost. But even here, the Premier League has left its mark.
Tickets, please, folks.
I've come to the southwest of England for the Devon derby between Plymouth and fierce rivals Exeter. In 2008, Plymouth fans watched on as their team almost made it to the Premier League. More recently, they've seen their side slide down 2 divisions and go bankrupt.
Not good. It ruined us. So there you go. Just wrecked this club.
I suppose you'd say that if it was any other industry and it was allowed to go like that, you know, it would be out of business.
They didn't think things through. They just spent money they didn't have.
How did it go wrong in just 2 years? You know, how did we go from being well run, having the money, having the finances to nothing?
The failed master plan was nothing if not ambitious. Plymouth had hoped to welcome not just the Premier League, but the world.
In 2010, Plymouth Argyle's Home Park Stadium was presented as being one of the host venues for England's 2018 World Cup bid. The venue here was set for massive expansion, but when that World Cup bid collapsed, Argyle weren't long in following. Within weeks, they were in financial administration, the staff and players weren't getting paid, and the club's debts were revealed to be in excess of $30 million.
Plymouth's near fatal effort to spend their way to the top is a far from isolated case. There have been more than 50 Football League insolvencies in the last 2 decades. Former England international Peter Reid, the manager, left picking up the pieces here.
Well, if you go to an ice cream van with a tenner, you can't spend 20 quid. It's obvious to me, so there's got to be budgets. I mean, I know about economics, but I'm not a businessman, but you can't spend what you haven't got. You can speculate to accumulate if you like, but within a budget. Once you start getting over that budget, it's very, very dangerous territory. I don't think it's rocket science. If you go down a road where you're putting the existence of the football club at stake, that cannot be right. That cannot be worth the gamble. And if you explain to the people, listen, at this moment in time, we haven't got the money. We're just going to have to go with what we've got, get young players through, and go that way. I think if supporters, you tell supporters, I think they understand.
The club have turned to a hugely controversial figure to try and right previous wrongs. Peter Ridsdale is one man who knows better than most how football finance can go wrong. A decade ago, Ridsdale was chairman of then Premier League high-flyers Leeds United. Some big European nights were enjoyed and some big cheques were written. The party ended when he stepped down with the club more than $150 million in debt.
There's a pressure that is unique in football that you don't find in other businesses, and it sometimes drives you down a decision-making route that probably isn't the best one from a business perspective, because you have the media, you have supporters, and they're looking for you to do something that bit extra to take you to the next stage. Sometimes you've got to be strong enough to say no, but when you do say no, you then get all sorts of other pressures on you.
Speak to the fans. Go on, Peter. Go on. I've been to Europe, Peter. Peter, some answers, please.
Too many people coming to football think it's simple. It's only simple if you do the right things and you stick to doing the right things rather than get carried away emotionally. What we need to remind everybody who's interested in investing in football is football clubs need people who are focused on the detail, who understand football, and can run this as a business, but as a football club business, and not get carried away with emotion. You know, after all, I've been there before myself.
That's a major problem. Because
for more than a decade, Dave Boyle worked for Supporters Direct, a group that attempts to empower fans and temper owner excesses.
Here we let clubs get on with it. We don't ask questions about whether it's sensible or whether the money's actually there, and then all raise our hands up and say, how did this happen? When a club like Plymouth Argyle goes insanely into debt and the supporters and the wider community are thinking, will we still have a club next season? Nobody ever sort of stops to say, are you sure? And that's the job a regulator could do. And it's also the job supporters, if they were given real power in clubs, could also do, because their main focus is to not just be successful this year, but it's to exist next year and the year afterwards, to give the next generation the same inheritance you had as a football supporter.
The sleepy city of Exeter is an unlikely location for a footballing revolution. Traditional rivals to nearby Plymouth, and something of an aberration on the English football landscape. Exeter City is a club that really does listen to its supporters and lives within its means. It hasn't always been this way, though.
A few short years ago, this city's football club was on the brink, millions of dollars in debt. In 2003, they were relegated out of the Football League. Two of the men running the club at that time were subsequently convicted of fraud.
And then there was the day this man came to town.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Michael Jackson and Uri Geller to the pitch of Exeter City Football Club.
In 2002, Michael Jackson was bizarrely invited to take up an honorary place in the boardroom. Symbolic of a club with grand plans, but little grasp on financial reality.
We must learn to live and love each other before it's too late. We have to stop.
The fact that Exeter Football Club didn't stop wasn't thanks to Jacko's pep talks, but the fans. Bust and sliding down the leagues, the supporters raised the enthusiasm and the cash required to save their team.
There was no great white knight coming over the horizon with a big checkbook. So we had little or no choice. If we wanted the club to survive, then we had to do it ourselves. And so the Supporters Trust took over the ownership, and the rest is history.
With the fans still as their owners, the team have now made it back up to the third tier of English football. Former Tottenham captain Steve Perryman has been with the club through it all.
The club had got relegated. The owners were sort of having to answer to the fraud squad, so the supporters took the club over, and their motivation was they believed that they deserved a league club playing in Exeter.
How do you feel as someone who's been involved in football for so long about the supporters becoming so directly involved in a club?
Well, I love it because it's actually how football was when I started at Tottenham. Bill Nicholson, the famous manager, used to tell us that the most important people at the club were the supporters. And as he rightly said, you know, these players are going to leave one day, and the people that stay with the club are the supporters. So actually they're the important ones.
This a club where the fans really do have a direct connection with their team, that isn't willing to risk bankruptcy in pursuit of the Premier League, where owners and supporters are the same thing.
You can all gamble on the next promotion, and if we sign another few players, we might just get there, but it's not always the way. And actually, there's been no pressure here. The irony of all ironies is I've been here for 5 years, and no one's ever told me we need to get promoted. No one's ever told me where we need to finish in the league. They just tell me to spend within the budget and improve the players.
We are trustees, we are custodians of this football club. We want this football club to continue long after we've gone, long after I've gone, for the next generation. It belongs to the people of Exeter.
Royal weddings may bring the people of Exeter together once every 30 years or so, but it's a trick football pulls off just about every week. Here the fans are both emotionally and financially invested in their team, A simple idea, but one that's all too rare in England. Meet the supporters of 7-time German champions Schalke. They come from a country where football is run rather differently. Like virtually all German clubs, Schalke's majority owner is their supporters. Stuart Dykes is the club translator. Since moving to Germany from England, Schalke has been his team.
This whole concept of ownership is alien to German football fans. We're members. They're our clubs. We go along. We can vote at the AGM on issues affecting the club. We have a say in the running of that club. So it's just the ethos. It's just part of being a football fan in Germany.
Ticket prices are kept low. Any club debts are tightly regulated.
Okay. Thank you.
And under league rules, supporter members must own more than 50% of their club.
So you cannot sell the club, you can sell shares up to 49%, so the majority stays in the club. That's a big difference. Most of the teams in Spain, they are bankrupt. It's very difficult for them to pay the players, also in Italy. So yeah, because of investing too much money, there's no investment return. So that's it's a never-ending story. And in Germany, we are doing not this.
The German model is it's the most effective because it's the most modern. Is the Germans had this tremendous advantage of losing the Second World War when it comes to reconstructing football. They could actually start with a blank sheet of paper. And who were the politicians in Germany in 1946 after the war? Well, it was all the old lefties who'd survived because the fascists and the Nazis were dead on the run awaiting trial. And so they had a blank sheet of paper and they wrote down German football belongs to the German folk. Local football must belong to the local community. Now here you are Bundesliga, here you are German FA, off you go and work with that.
History has been less kind to English supporters. They don't have a majority share at any top-flight club. Half of the teams are now foreign-owned. And while the Premier League generates more than $3 billion worth of annual revenue, total club debt stands at around $5 billion.
I find it a great irony, really, that the game has never had so much income or never been in so much debt, and I don't want football to go the way that the banks went, with sort of reckless loans without assets, and suddenly the whole thing crashes down.
What most fans want, which is what a lot of fans in, say, Germany have already, which is the knowledge that if you have a decent manager and a decent team and a decent setup, then there's a chance for you to be successful. Whereas in England right now, the chances of being successful depend on your ability to find an extremely wealthy individual who is pretty unconcerned about losing most of their fortune.
But could the next generation of English footballers grow up in a very different financial environment? As of this season, club accounts are being scrutinised by the sport's European governing body UEFA. Under their new financial fair play rules, clubs will no longer be able to spend more than they earn. If they do, they face being kicked out of the continent's top competitions.
You want it to work. I mean, if Roman Abramovich does pull his money out of Chelsea, what will happen? If the sheikhs of Manchester City walk away tomorrow, what will happen? And of course, the higher wages we pay, the fans will always presume that it's coming out of their pocket. And I think with the economy, with the world, the way we are at the moment, we need to certainly step back and try and adjust.
Goal, 2 goals!
Liverpool are just one example of a club refocused on developing their own talent. all too aware that under the new rules, buying inexpensive players may not always be an option. Frank McParland arrived here in 2009 to overhaul what was a failing academy system.
The local kids are our lifeblood, you know, as the local staff are. And I'm not saying we'll only employ people from Liverpool, we employ the best people. But if the best people are from Liverpool, that's where we want them. As with the players, you know, we're desperate to get homegrown players through to our first team. We're Liverpool, so we need top talented players. We have a scouting network now that goes all around the world. And if we can get a fantastic player from Brazil and he has a passport and we can bring him in, that's what we'll do.
But the occasion 2 years ago was, in my opinion...
Respect for the fans as well as talent is nurtured here. Young players being taken to the Hillsborough Memorial Service, all part of that process.
It's of paramount importance that they're taught properly, both in footballing terms but also in life. If they come here and they don't make it as a footballer, then we'd like to think that they go away a better person. So it's the same philosophy from when I was a youngster. Sometimes the first team players aren't allowed to be normal, and that's not their fault. Sometimes that's just the community's fault. They're not allowed to be natural and normal and do the things that you or I could get away with. So for us it's important that they are good people and good footballers.
There is so much money involved in football, and that can happen at a very early age, you know, from when they first sign a professional contract at 17 onwards. To get paid that money comes from somewhere, and a lot of the time that's from the supporters. So what does the supporters expect to see consistently? The work rate, the hard work, the effort, giving everything for the club, and I think those things are emphasised as well to the players as they become older.
With the Premier League also introducing tighter financial controls, there is at least a chance that more players will stay loyal to a team and its supporters, and owners won't be able to gamble away a club's future. Cup final day at England's national stadium, Wembley. The FA Trophy is for teams outside of the top leagues. Mansfield Town are taking on Darlington. The sort of woes being suffered by Darlington supporters are all too typical of the English football fan. Bankruptcies, a former owner jailed, a home stadium up for sale. And yet they, in keeping with fans all over the country, keep believing, keep following their passion and their team.
Given the economic effects and the steady rise of ticket prices way above inflation over 2 decades now, it's clearly taxing what we used to call ordinary working men and women's purses much higher than it once did. But it seems to be something that families and individuals cling on to. It's the last item they're going to dispose of.
It's a drug. It's the opium of the masses. There's no doubt about that. You know, Karl Marx said, you know, religion was, but that's because football hadn't been invented. If it had been around now, we'd have been saying football, because it is all powerful. And you can see the way it consumes people, and it takes over their lives.
Most supporters believe they, not owners, represent the true values of their club, and fear their loyalty is exploited rather than embraced. Both directly and indirectly, fans generate revenue. Matches in empty stadiums wouldn't be good for the players, and it wouldn't make for great TV pictures either. The same images that are then sold to the world. But despite their commercial value, all too often, fans feel their needs and the long-term needs of their clubs are being ignored.
Fans are often criticised as being sort of led by this mad passion for success, but in our experience, it's the fly-by-night directors who've pitched up out of nowhere wanting a bit of fun at a football club who are the most reckless and most ambitious and most careless.
Manchester United are owned by the Glazers, Liverpool are owned by Americans, Chelsea are owned by Abramovich. I don't think they are. I think the supporters, it's still the supporters. It's their football club. If them supporters didn't go, them businesses, them football clubs would die.
I sometimes speak to Spurs supporters and they feel a little bit as if, you know, if they argue against a price rise, well, no problem, go away, someone else will take your ticket, and they've got 20,000-30,000 people on a waiting list. So there would be someone else to take that ticket that was too dear for this supporter that had been supporting the club for 40 odd years.
A club's future isn't just reliant on how many goals they score, it's also reliant on just how many people really care about those goals going in.
The relationship between people and club is the key to the entire value structure of the game. There's a quite simple answer to the question, what is a football club worth? The answer is, how much do people love you? How many of them love you? How geographically widespread is this group of affectionate disciples? And what intensity, what propensity to spend in pursuit of that affection. That's the value of a football club. It's expressed in terms of love. It's a monetization of love.
That love for a club will never disappear. All fans ask is that owners enter these arenas of history and emotion with duly respectful footsteps and don't price them out of their regular seat. The fans in every footballing city are entwined in the folklore of the game. But should that relationship between the people and their club unravel, the first link in a supporter chain that stretches across the globe will be broken, and the game as we know it could be lost forever.